right, just letting everything get connected. As always, for those of you here on the replay, just please go ahead and fast forward it to 2 to 3 minutes in. I'm actually going to jump right in like I've been doing instead of, waiting around as long as I have in the past. But I am going to give it just a few seconds. So if you're here, if you're already subscribed, let me know in the comments who you are, where you're from, if you would like to connect in the chat. I do love these lives, and this is why I do these podcasts live right now, is because not only do I have the time in the space, but it's an opportunity to connect with people in real time and to have an exchange instead of me just talking to you. I get to talk with you. And I love that. So if you would like to connect in the chat, please do so. I do have it set up for subscribers, and this just keeps this chat for those that are really interested in being here and learning and receiving and having that type of connection, because obviously there are those that are not here for that reason. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Éoaccí. This is the Human Condition podcast series, and I love being able to jump on here and share from my own personal experiences and what I've learned. One thing that I have found that's really, really impactful is sharing from my personal experience. And the reason why is because nobody else has that experience like I do. Just like nobody has the experience like you do. You're the main character in your reality. You're the main character. You're the source of your universe. Nobody has the experiences like you do. That's your gift. That's what you get to share with the world. Anybody can read information. Anybody can talk about information. Anybody can talk about what they read. Anybody can talk about what they know. I see this on social media all the time, is that one person will post something that's really catchy, and then like 4 or 5 other creators will basically post the same thing using the same words because it was catchy, as if they were the ones that came up with it, because they're afraid to be in, I know this, I've been afraid to be in my creative genius, because put yourself out here and to connect with people, it takes balls. And I don't mean that as if I'm special. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of what are people going to think? What are people going to say? Are they going to find what I'm saying important? There's all these thoughts and emotions that pass through. But what's really impactful that comes from that is not that I'm just sitting up here talking, but that I'm making the choice to not play small anymore. That irregardless of what people say, irregardless of what people think, I'm going to do it anyways. But I'm going to do it from my personal experience. I'm not just going to tell you guys things that I've read. I'm going to share with you what I've read, what I've learned, how I've applied it, what that looks like, and what the entire picture, literally what my reality looks like and what has happened, what has transformed. Because that's what I never got from the very first part of my journey, from people that I received from creators, from other social media platforms. People would talk about these things, but I didn't really know, well, how did you figure that out? How did you learn about it? What does it look like for you? I wanted to know what it looked like for other people, because that's how I take an idea and a concept and I apply it, because then I know what it looks like in the real world. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys, and that's what I always share. So now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So what I would invite for everyone is I do my best to compact everything in here in an amount of time that's not going to take up too much time and space, but gives you an opportunity to learn as much as you can. So if you don't have a pen and a piece of paper, I would highly recommend getting one. So take things that stand out to you, drop them in the comments, connect if you want. You don't have to, of course, and come back and revisit it. And I would recommend revisiting it even more so after you've applied what you've written down, because then you're going to see it differently. Then you're going to learn something again, and you're going to learn it again. So take what you're hearing, be intentional, carry it with you, and then apply it. Okay, so what I want to explore today, and this is each of my lives piggyback on each other, is you guys, the last live I spoke into and shared with you everyone about what was happening with my fur baby and the terror and the fear and everything that came up around that when he was in emergency care. Now that I'm on the other side of that, and I've had another week to really be in the midst of learning my lessons from this state of emotional attachment, the most important thing that is happening right now is that everything is perfect. He is doing amazing. I am doing amazing. Literally, there is not one thing in my reality that isn't amazing right now. Um, I even had connections come in over this last week that I had visualized and that I had affirmed and that I had connected to from that future version of myself. And these connections have to do with an expansion of my own financial point of receiving. So like my ability to receive more abundance, these connections are directly correlated to me taking that next step into like millionaire, multimillionaire status. And the reason why that's important is because it's not only that this person stepped in, it's that this person stepped in the moment that I was ready to receive the opportunity. And what happens is when we have some really deep emotional connections and attachments to certain ideas, certain people, certain things, certain concepts, and most certainly beliefs, we are very sneaky in terms of our subconscious and the way that we act and the way that we behave. We have this sneakiness to our behavior that prevents us from receiving our highest and most capable experiences, like the highest version of ourselves, the most abundant version of ourselves. It's not that we can't, it's that we are so used to playing small to stay safe that we have built these attachments. Our identity has built these attachments that keep us in this zone of comfort. And this zone of comfort carries with it a lot of fear. It carries with it a lot of suffering. It carries with it a lot of challenges, but not challenges that we see as opportunities, but challenges that we believe are holding us back. We'll literally, the way that our beliefs and our identity is viewing these challenges is if everything's wrong, and it's no different than if, let me see what's a good example here. It would be like if I had a belief that if someone were to give me feedback, like say on this podcast episode, and they wanted to make a comment about the subject matter or how I spoke, or maybe they said I was talking too fast, or maybe they said I could have dressed differently. If I'm coming from a belief system that sees everything and everyone as a threat, then that means that's a big deal for me. That's a no-no. You're not allowed to give me that type of feedback because it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I did something wrong. It makes me feel like you don't like me and you don't appreciate me. And that's because my lens of reality, my glasses that I'm viewing reality through have determined that if I am not in control of anything that comes to me, then it's somehow going to hurt me. And the only way that I can be in control is if it looks a certain way, sounds a certain way, comes from a certain set of people. And if it doesn't fall into the categories that I have determined are safe, then I'm going to automatically be pushing it away, and I'm going to want it to stay away from me. But when we talk about abundance and we talk about receiving more, if we're automatically pushing away that version of experience, we're pushing ourselves away from ourselves. We're basically saying, no, that part of me isn't welcome. Those mirrors of me, those echo chambers of me, they're not safe. And if they're not safe, guess what? Look at it. Think about it when it comes to building a business. Do you think as you're building a business that people are going to always think that you're the most amazing person, that you're doing everything perfectly? No, there's going to be critique. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, there's going to be people that are going to be giving you feedback that are going to want to help you grow, learn, and expand. It's not always going to sound the way you want it to, but that doesn't mean it's not safe. Well, but if you're building a business and you're working towards being a multi-million-dollar income state and you can't receive feedback, then how can you grow if you're automatically pushing away versions of yourself that are there as part of the opportunity of growth, expansion, and abundance? You can't. And in the most simplistic explanation of that, or version of that, is that if I push any part of me away, then I am no longer receiving all of me. I'm only receiving parts of me. And abundance isn't coming to you in parts. It's coming into you in large, decisive amounts. And these large, decisive amounts are directly correlated to your level of emotional responsibility. And my level of emotional responsibility was always very low. And Bruiser, my fur baby, was my excuse to be an emotionally irresponsible individual, because if I had to worry about him, I didn't have to worry about other things. But not only that, I wasn't able to be in the moment. Like, I was always trying to avoid this discomfort. I wasn't seeing how perfectly everything was working out. And just that portion of my life, that portion of me that was constantly trying to control the outcome with him, was missing all these other opportunities. And that's because I had my emotional attachment to him kept me coming back to him. And this can be for you in terms of, maybe you're working a job that you don't love, but you're staying there because it's comfortable. You know that you want to work for yourself, or you want to work in your dream job or your dream career, but there's a fear that if you leave that job, you're not going to have enough income. Okay? With Bruiser, it was a fear of, well, if I don't know exactly what's happening with him, if I'm not controlling everything, then I don't know if he's going to be okay, right? I don't know if he's going to be healthy. And that ties into a video I brought through a few weeks ago around enoughness being here right now. If you're afraid to walk away from the job because you're so comfortable in the fear of missing out, then you will consistently be met with missing out on opportunities. It'll feel like nothing is ever coming your way. It'll feel like nothing is ever working out, because that's where your belief ultimately lies. And you will be met with that experience. Just like for me, I said Bruiser was healthy, but I was ultimately met with the experience of the old awareness, which is where my beliefs were always at, my thoughts, my emotions were always at, which was the fear that he never was. So this means if I say one thing, but my belief is focused on another thing, my belief is what determines my reality. And you guys, your 3D is a dead space. It's a space of, it's one layer of conscious interaction. It is a dimension of interaction, but it is the reflection of old awareness. So if you're looking at what's happening in your reality right now and you try to change it or want to change it, there's a puzzle piece missing in that awareness, which is that what is passing through right now in your 3D, that's the end result of an old awareness. It's the only way it could have happened. It couldn't happen any other way, and you can't change it. But what you can do is interact with an alternate version of it in your next second future, because we're only a second long anyways. So if you want to interact with a different version of your reality, because all versions of you exist right now simultaneously, you must determine which version you choose to believe in. And you have to give yourself to it. Just like with the job, if you know that you are destined, designed, if you know deep down your soul is saying you need to be working for yourself, or you need to be, you got a dream job you want to work in, decide right now that you're already there and just simply follow through. Because if you don't, like a rubber band snapping, irregardless of what you want, your reality is not giving you what you want, it's giving you what you believe. And if you ultimately believe that you would miss out on something, then your beliefs will always, or your reality will always show you the evidence that that's true. And coming from someone that left the job market to start doing all of this stuff and to start working for myself, yes, it's fucking scary. And yes, there is this period of not knowing if it's going to work out. But that's also part of the illusion, because everything always works out. No matter what, it works out in accordance to your beliefs. So what belief are you working in right now? Think of it as a job. It's not really, but you can correlate it in that way. The belief that you're working in is the belief that you're giving your time, your energy, and your attention to. And the most predominant belief or set of beliefs that you're working in is the return of your investment. You're getting a return on the investment of the belief that you are most dedicated to. You know, like working a 9 to 5, you're showing up there every single day, you're putting in your time, you're getting your vacation, right? That's a return on the investment of energy that you put in at your job. Your belief is no different. And what I can tell you is, especially with this experience with Bruiser, with what I'm experiencing right now with money and the reality of money, is that I had to go through what I've gone through to not only be able to share these experiences with you, but to be able to understand that I was never really missing out on anything. I was never really gonna lose anything, because whatever I perceive to be taken away, something else always comes in. With Bruiser, even though I went through this traumatic experience with him, the version of him that stepped in once I let go is, I mean, it's literally everything that I was desiring to be true, but just simply wasn't receiving all at once. It's like all the little things that I was trying so hard to control are just here now, and I don't even have to think about them. I decided, and then I consistently showed up in an emotional way that supported that decision. And now I don't think about it. I don't meditate on it. I don't do anything. I just allow it. And as I'm allowing it, I'm realizing how easy it is to allow that to happen. And the reason why we don't allow it to happen is because of that need to control. It comes back to the playing small, and it comes back to the playing it safe. Because if I am in my comfort zone, I know everything. You guys, like in our comfort zone, we know everything. We're in the know-it-all attitude, right? It doesn't matter how much wisdom, how much support, how much information comes to us that can literally transfer our investment from that reality into another one. It doesn't matter. We won't receive it because we have already decided, our belief system that we're working in has already decided that that's not good enough. I know everything, and what I know is best. And this means that we are literally working with our 3D as if we have to do something in order to make the reality give us something back. And like, for instance, I'll use one here with business. When I started deciding to do this with the podcast, and I decided to start putting myself back out here again, all these thoughts came forward. Like, I thought I had to have things prepared a certain way before I could start doing this again. Again, a very deep subconscious belief of perfectionism. Like, if I'm not presenting a certain way, if I don't have the podcast set up a certain way, people aren't going to be responsive, people aren't going to enjoy it. And because all of these deep subconscious beliefs that come from that space of needing to control, because I gave those thoughts my attention, that's where my awareness was going. Anytime I would meet myself in that thought, I would stop, and I wouldn't move forward into a live, or I wouldn't move forward into recording something. I wouldn't do a reel. Okay. So I would meet myself in the thought that it's not good enough. I can't do it right now. I don't have things prepared. So I met myself in my old awareness, or in my comfort zone of awareness. I would visit with those thoughts. I would feel what I feel about them. And then I would ultimately remain in the decision that it's not good enough, that right now isn't good enough. And since right now is the only place where good enough exists, I was never familiarizing myself with that truth. I was consistently remaining familiar with the old truth that I am only going to be enough, and my podcast is only going to be enough if I have this in order, and this in order, and this in order, and I look like this, and I sound like this, and I have this presented in a certain way. So guess what happens? I never make the move. I never energetically move into that currency of experience because I'm remaining in this consistent loop and this consistent cycle of never being enough. Nothing's ever good enough. Nobody's ever seeing that things are good enough. Now, of course, I don't really know what anybody thinks about me, just like you don't. You can see what someone else is doing. You can see the image of someone in your reality, and you can assume what you assume about them, but you're the only one that exists in your reality. So how they exist in their bubble of reality, we don't really know that. That's for them to decide. Ultimately, for us, we can either see everyone and everything out here from the thoughts and the assumption that everyone is showing up to love us and appreciate us and support us, because that's true. Or we can constantly be recycling ourselves through this awareness of not enoughness. And then we play small. And then we don't step outside that comfort zone bubble. And then we don't expand. And then we don't really see how capable we are to receive that love. So therefore, we stay in our comfort zone. We stay consistently trying to make love somehow come out of a space where love doesn't exist. It doesn't mean love doesn't exist as a whole, but it means in a space of enoughness, not enoughness, I can't be met with love. I can only be met with lack. Because ultimately I've decided that in that moment, love isn't meeting me on the other side of that decision. Not enoughness is. A lack of love is the only thing I have decided is meeting me. And so when I consistently show up in that bubble of comfort, then not only am I not receiving myself abundantly, I can't experience, I'm not in a position to experience just how easy it always was to just simply show up. And we stay, and it's so easy nowadays, especially with the internet the way it is. I mean, I grew up when it was still dial up. So the internet, cell phones, we have all of these conveniences that allow us to stay behind a screen and that allow us to have something to constantly distract us, to give us a dopamine hit, and to keep us in this state of anxiety as if the world is somehow dangerous. And we are ultimately coming from a position, all of us, through our forgetting that that was always true. But what I've learned is that there is absolutely nothing dangerous about the world. There's nothing dangerous about people. There's nothing dangerous about showing up and just connecting. There's nothing dangerous. There was never anything dangerous in this traumatic experience with Bruiser. I assumed that because of what was happening, that ultimately meant he was in danger. But guess what? He never was. But it's impossible for us to see just how wonderfully things are going to work out if we can't see that already it's happening right now. If we choose not to see how perfect our life is right now, then how can we receive that truth back? Our nervous system is an echo chamber. It is simply receiving the information back that we are transferring, that we're sending out, the signals that we're sending out, we're receiving them back. My question to you is, what signal are you receiving to your universe? What signal are you sending and receiving back to your universe? What signal are you sending and receiving back in your reality? Your 3D is always going to be an old awareness passing through. You're not going to change it when you interact with it. It's like I said, that's dead. It's dead. It's done. You don't change that. What you do though is you show up in love of it, because the awareness that's passing through, I guarantee you, if it's anything like me, that old awareness is coming from a place that didn't believe that love existed right then. It was coming from a place of not enoughness. And what that experience of you is really looking for in that moment is love. So these events that are passing through, these experiences that are passing through, hello and welcome, Charlene. If you interact with that event from a place of love, then what you're doing is you're giving, you're expressing and sharing with that moment something that you once believed you lacked. And therefore, you're starting to show yourself in your nervous system and your reality. You're starting to fine tune and tune into a different channel and a different currency of experience. One that says, no matter what happens right now, I choose love. I choose enoughness. I choose everything already working out, because it always has and it always will. It's just, are you working to see that? Are you working to believe in that? Or are you working to believe in that old fact or that old truth that love doesn't exist to you right now, that you're not interacting with love right now, that you're not enough right now, that what you're experiencing in front of you isn't enough? Oh, and I have a good example. I got an example I'm going to share with you guys that's very, very relative to what I'm saying here. What I'm discussing here, Charlene, is simply just, this is the Human Condition podcast. And on here, I like to explore the experience of being human, the relationship that we have to our identity, how our identity relates itself to its beliefs and its thoughts and its reality, and how that emotional interaction and that emotional connection keeps us snapping back into an awareness and into interactions that we say we don't want, but yet we keep coming back to. So like, why do we keep coming back and having these experiences that we say, like, if you're like me, you got all the information, in your tool belt, you've received all the new age spirituality and the metaphysical science and all of the things, but things aren't changing, right? So that was me for the longest time. So what I'm sharing with you here is not that we are trying to change things. That's one thing I would invite you guys to let go of. You're not trying to change reality. You're not trying to change yourself. You're learning how to live in the present moment in every second. That's your totality of existence, is a second long. You're interacting with the infinite possibilities of yourself in every now moment. Okay? It's how are you choosing to interact with yourself so that you can interact with yourself and your reality from a position of everything always working out. But that begins with a decision. That decision must be that it's already working out, because how can you experience something that you don't believe in when your entire reality is based on what you believe in? So a good example I'll use here is, I have a dear friend. I've mentioned her, and she's been on this podcast a few times. Well, she's been in the chat. And she's also a former client, and so I've used some examples with her before. But this one came up in a conversation. I just received some of it before coming on here, and I felt like this was a perfect example. She's in the position, she's making a move right now. She's moving into an apartment. And as she's moving into an apartment and she's getting her things packed and she's moving a little bit at a time and she's taking the stuff down in her room, she started to feel some homesickness. And she started to have these thoughts coming up as she's realizing just how much she's going to miss her home, her childhood home, and how that homesickness and that awareness of how wonderful her childhood home has always been, as that awareness starts to rise up, then the apartment doesn't look as appealing as it did. Doesn't mean she's not making the move, she is. But what's happening in that moment is a contradiction and a contrast, because when we start to make moves, when we start to make decisions, such as deciding that I'm ready for a new level of responsibility and I'm going to make this move into an apartment, if that move was made because you're running from your childhood home, you're running from a place that you don't really appreciate, or you don't really, not that she doesn't appreciate it, but when you're running from a place that you think is not good enough, and you're running into a place that you think is better than, or more worthy, once you start to transfer that energy, there is an opportunity for you to see the one thing you were missing out on the whole time, which is that that her childhood home was always perfect. There was always plenty of space. It was always an amazing place to live. This new apartment isn't better than her childhood home. It's different. It's a different place, but it's what happens is when we're running away from that place, when we're running away because we think things are going to be better, we think, well, I can't do all the things I want in this house, so I need to move to a different place so that I can do what I want, so that I can be around different people, so that I can have new interactions, so that I can have different things. What I'm saying is that I don't have those things right now. I can't have those things right now, which means enoughness isn't here in this place right now. It's only over here in the future in this new place. So I'm running away from not enoughness into what I think is enoughness. But the truth is that enoughness was always there. She was never going to find it in the new apartment, and she was never missing it in the house. And so now that the transition is underway and she's actually following through with what she said she was going to do, there's the realization of, oh, wow, like this isn't just something I'm talking about anymore. This is something I'm doing, which comes with a level of emotional responsibility. And so when we go to when we go to interact with our lives and we go to interact with experiences in our life, the question is, are you in love with everything right now, or are you trying to arrive at a place where you think everything will be better? Because if you're not in love and acceptance of your life as it is right now, you will never know what love and acceptance actually feel like. Not because you need to have that feeling, and not because you need to find that feeling, but because you'll never have the opportunity, you'll never decide on that opportunity, that it's always been here, that you've never lacked it, that it's never been anywhere else, that it was never going to be in a partner, it was never going to be at a new job, it was never going to be in a new house, it was never going to be in something or somewhere else. And that's why people are never happy, is because they're constantly chasing the next best thing. And this is why I always would tell my clients that, or I still do, whatever it is you think you want isn't necessarily what you need. We will 99.9% of the time absolutely block out what we really need in lieu of what we think we want. Because what we think we want is coming from a lot of subconscious and unconscious beliefs that are tied to emotions of fear and lack. And because they're tied to emotions of fear and lack, that fear and lack is directing what we want. Like, oh, I want to move into a new apartment. And I've had the same experience. I want to move into a new apartment. Okay, but why? Why am I wanting to move? What is the desire behind the move? What is it that I want from the move? And if you ask yourselves those questions, you'll begin to see if you're trying to make the move to make yourself happier. Are you trying to get something out of a dead space? Are you trying to get love out of an experience? Because if so, it's not going to work. That's not how love comes to you. That's not how you receive. That's simply a belief of nothing ever being good enough, and I've got to try to force this dead space to give me something that I think I need because I'm not the source and I'm not capable of experiencing it right now. That's where that's coming from. So if you want to take that a slightly different route and connect with yourself as the source, then the source acknowledges and has already determined that love is already here, joy is already here, happiness is already here. It's not out there. It's not in the future. I don't lack it from the past. I don't have a childhood or a past that has somehow prevented me from love. And that's one that tends to catch people up. And I've gone through the deep dive into that work. You know, I've gone through 6 to 12 months of really, really, really deep internal shadow work, inner child healing, you know, working with some amazing mentors. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I've offered that service too. What I realize now is that there was really nothing that happened to me in my childhood. There was nothing that happened to me in my life that has prevented me from experiencing love. I just simply didn't carry the awareness then. I didn't have the awareness then of myself as the source. That's the only difference. Once you remember that you're the source, there is nothing preventing you from experiencing everything right now. Nothing. Except for you. Because you're the most powerful thing in your reality, you're the most powerful thing in your universe. And ultimately, if you decide that you can't receive money, if you ultimately decide that you can't receive love, if you ultimately decide that you can't receive happiness, meaning you yourself choose it right now, you receive it right now, and it is here right now. If you don't decide on it, then you're the one pretending that you don't have the power. And you're the only one that can do that, because nobody else exists but you. So if you're going to work for anything, work for and within the decision right now that you have enough, you are enough, and that everything is always working out, because it is. And it cannot happen any other way. Now, I know that life be lifing, especially with the stuff that I just went through. I get it. I know that there's moments where it feels impossible to see the best. Those are the moments where you dig your feet in a little bit deeper, and you say, no matter what, if nothing else, you choose to be toxically grateful. I'm not saying that you have to feel love. I'm not saying that you have to feel peaceful. You don't want to try to find the feeling, and that's what a lot of people do. It's what I've done. You're not trying to find the feeling. The feeling will find you. Okay. What you do want to do is shift where you give your energy, your focus, and your attention to. And there's a subtle nuance to this. And this is something, again, client brought up to me. And I'm really grateful for it, because I took a moment and paused, and I really sat with this, and I realized I needed this question as much as we needed to have the conversation. A lot of people do affirming and manifestation, rapid fire affirmations, constantly reinforcing from that position of where I'm going to place my awareness and my thoughts, which is a great tool. Absolutely, I do that. But a lot of times, and this has been, again, my experience for myself and my experience with clients, is a lot of times we go into affirming something or forcing our awareness on a train of thought because we are attempting to avoid whatever thoughts we don't like, whatever feelings we don't like, or whatever situations we don't want to be in. Now, if you're trying to use affirmations or anything like that as an escapism, it ain't going to work. And I know there are a lot of people out there that say, just keep doing it, just keep affirming, just be robotic. That's great, but you have to remember there are subconscious emotions that you're avoiding, which are simultaneously not going anywhere, which means that no matter how much you affirm, those subconscious feelings, those emotions, those attachments are going to find you. That's what I mean by the feeling finds you. You don't have to find the feeling. Okay, so the feeling finds you when you, as a vehicle of source, allow yourself to be a vehicle, a conduit, an available source of receiving. So when you right now choose, in this now moment, the only time that exists, to be with the thoughts that you're avoiding, to be with whatever it is you fear the most. I brought this up last session, and it's so important. Instead of running from and trying to avoid what you fear the most, I want you to be with it. I want you to have an intimate date with your worst fears. And I want you to let them consume you. I want you to feel and let your nervous system purge and metabolize what you have been avoiding at every twist and every turn of your life. Because the only way that you're going to be able to consciously and continuously align with the thoughts from an awareness that's still not trying to run away or escape something is by feeling whatever it is you're trying to avoid right now. Because you can't ultimately avoid it anyways. It's going to find you. You're going to be placed in a situation directly parallel to your fear, and you will be faced with what you fear irregardless. So do it now. Don't wait until it happens and then feel like you have no control. Don't wait until it happens to feel like, you can't do anything about it, because you always could, and you always have, and you always have been able to. So be with it now and let yourself go through the process of envisioning whatever it is you fear. This is how I got over my fear of spiders. Okay. And I'm talking about absolute terror of spiders. I mean, I couldn't see one. I would not go into that room for days. I wouldn't sleep. I mean, just absolute terror. And I also have had a very severe fear of heights. Okay. So now fear of heights requires me to actually be in a position of height. That's how facing it and getting through it has helped me, because when you face it head on, your nervous system realizes it goes from unrealized to realized. And once it's realized, the way that you process it is different. And so what you're doing is you're placing your nervous system in a head-on collision with your worst fear. Okay. So you can do this visually, or like with obviously with heights, I could do it visually, but it really enhances it for me when I'm actually in a position of being high up. And it serves and supports me in seeing that I can be in that position and nothing bad happens. Because the reason why the fear is there to begin with is because of the belief that something bad happens. That's like, watching a plane crash and saying like, oh my gosh, well, if I go get on a plane, then there's a possibility that I'm going to crash. And since the fear is my predominant anchor in terms of how I relate to planes, all I'm going to see is the catastrophic events that take place with planes. My RAS is going to just consistently filter the worst case scenario all the time to me, because that's what I believe in. Now, if I want to change my relationship, then I start to see that planes are an efficient way of traveling, that there are way more events where that doesn't happen than where it does. We just have a way of putting the worst case of everything on the news, and then people believe the news as being true instead of seeing that it's just an opportunity to receive information, and ultimately you're the one that decides if it's good or bad. There is no bad in the world. There's no good in the world. There is no countries that are bad. There's no countries that are good. There is no system that is better than the other. Everything is neutral. We project from our belief system onto every bit of information. We project onto it our identity, because we identify with it in a certain way. I identify with it as being good, or identify with it as being bad. So therefore I carry it with me always, and I interact with it from how I identify with it. So start to reframe your identity from a position of facing your fears head on, seeing that there are just as many best cases as there are worst cases. And ultimately, where you want to be is in a position of neutrality, where even when you're in the belief that everything always works out, you're not seeking happiness. You're not going to be in, oh, well, everything's working out for me, just to be like on a dopamine high all the time. That's not the point. Again, then you're just in a varying polarity of fear, honestly, because then you're just still trying to escape something. You're in a position of everything always working out because it's just a choice. It's a decision, like making the decision that I decided to wear this shirt today. I didn't need to go through the process of getting myself pumped up and like feeling all super excited. And I didn't decide that, oh, once I put this shirt on, I'm going to feel like a point of ecstasy. No, I just decided that's the shirt I'm going to wear. So this is the same way when we're deciding that everything always works out. It's just a decision. And how we relate to our reality from that point of everything always working out is constantly choosing to see that no matter what passes through. Okay? So if you truly decide on that, then no matter what old awareness passes through your reality, no matter what that dead space of interaction shows you, you don't determine your worth or lack of it based on what's moving through. Okay? Because see, what's moving through is moving through because you've already decided if you're worthy. You already decided if you're enough. You've already decided if life is enough. And you already decided if it isn't. And that's why when it moves through, you interact with it from the place that you do. And that's why none of this is about changing. I mean, you could say there's a shift. There's a There's a shift of perception. There's a shift of awareness. But really the only thing that's changing is what you're deciding on. You're no longer deciding that it's going to be that your love and your joy and your happiness is somewhere in the future. You're no longer deciding that your reality is happening to you. You're no longer deciding that there's something missing right now. You're no longer deciding that, for instance, if you have decided that you're healthy, you're no longer going to be interacting with your own thoughts from a position of what's wrong with you. Okay? So if you decide you're healthy, you don't choose to see your body and your experience with the sensations in your body as something wrong. Okay? That's the correlation. So remember, my loves, wherever you believe and whatever you believe in, that's where you're working. That's your job. That's literally where your time, your energy, your attention, and your focus go. And the paycheck that you get is going to come back to you directly parallel to what you believe. So you're basically writing yourself a check from lack, or you're writing yourself a check from acceptance and abundance. That's the way money comes to you. That's the way relationships come to you. That's the way everything comes to you. Everything is coming to you anyways. It's just that check determines the interaction that you have. That check is basically the information, and everything is already scripted in how you're going to receive it, how you're going to interact with it, and in what capacity. So start writing your checks differently. Start filtering your awareness differently. Start choosing to place your awareness on seeing the best. And again, I just really want to reinforce, you're not choosing to see the best to make yourself happy. You're not choosing to see the best to be on an ecstasy ride all the time. You're choosing to see the best because that is the ultimate truth of Source. Source is never worried, and you're Source, and you get to be in a relationship with that version of you if you decide to. And that's, when we're talking about identity, it's really what you identify with. So are you identifying with yourself as the Source? Or are you identifying with the worst case and never having enough and nothing ever working out? And, are you going to identify with the victim, or are you going to identify with the Source? So if you're the Source, then you're definitely going to be in a level of responsibility that the victim isn't. The victim gets to play in the comfort zone of suffering and not be responsible emotionally. And a lot of times what the victim will do, this is what I did, is they know everything about everything, but nothing ever shifts. They have all the information. They know about all the new age metaphysical things. Like I said, they have all the Reiki certifications. They know all the things, but there is literally no movement in terms of internally, there's no movement towards a different currency of their own Source self. So if you know about these things, but you're finding it difficult or challenging to actually experience the shift, then I would encourage you to reach out. I mean, I would, again, I have my client sessions open right now. I have one-on-one sessions. I also have month-long mentorships open if you want to do a little bit more of a deep dive. But it's so powerful to be able to reach out and connect and have a conversation and explore. Even when you speak, a lot of times we don't realize that our speech patterns are directly correlated to a lot of our subconscious emotional attachments. We may not even know when we're speaking that we have that emotional attachment there, but someone else on the other side that is in agreement to, reflect that back to you can see that. So if you're interested in maybe being able to look at some of these things and work through shifting out of that comfort zone into a new space of familiarity, which is the familiarity as you identify with Source, not the familiarity as you identify with the victim, then let's connect. I would love to work with you. And for anyone that is working with me as a new client, I am running a little bit of a special right now, like a meet and greet type thing where we get to connect. So I am going to have my information in the description if anyone is interested interested, you can email me. We can get on a call and have a conversation. I would love to talk to you, and I will give you some feedback in the discovery call. Even if you don't want to work with me, I will offer you whatever support I can in that moment that we have time and space for. And that way you're still able to take something with you from the call, okay? But irregardless, remember that it's very easy to get caught up. I know I did for the longest time. It's so easy to get caught up in thinking that we can do it on our own, and that we can, and I'm not saying that we don't, because we really are the only person in our reality. But what version of ourselves are we choosing to exchange with? That's a key and important factor. A lot of times we don't reach out and connect with someone that's going to push us to step outside that comfort zone, because it means a level of responsibility that we have been subconsciously avoiding our whole lives. I know it's been the biggest case for me, because I have got a PhD in procrastination and avoidance. That was the biggest thing that I had to work on shifting. I didn't have to, but I chose to work on shifting for myself, was just no longer playing small, showing up, doing the damn thing, and just enjoying the process. Because the process isn't something you do, it's something that unfolds once you decide. Okay, so there is no process to this necessarily. The process just simply happens. It just unfolds, and you get to either decide to enjoy it, or you can decide to constantly chase after whatever you think the process is, and always being in a consistent state of not enough and lack. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here today. I thank you all for being here. I thank you for joining me. Again, this is Éoaccí. This is the Human Condition podcast series. I am just so in love with being able to show up here and share these things with you guys each week. If you are enjoying this series, please let me know in the comments if you have anything that you would like for me to speak into, if you have a question or any part of this that you would like further clarity on. You can email it to me and I can drop it in as a part of the next live, or you can drop it into the comments. You can reach out to me at any time. Like I said, I will have the email linked. And also you can reach me on my Instagram or my Facebook Messenger. Éoaccí Éin is the handle. I will have that in the description as well. So yeah, if you're interested in working with me, just reach out, let me know. The sessions are approximately an hour to an hour and a half, but if we go over, if you're available for that, I don't like to restrict it. I like to give people an opportunity to be seen, heard, and received. Yeah, and we'll pricing. I have a range of pricing to accommodate as many people as I can without stepping into poverty. So what I'm asking is not too much of you, it is asking just enough of you, which is exactly what I'm asking you to decide on right now. Are you deciding on enoughness or not? Okay. All right. Let's stop playing small, you guys. Start deciding that enough is here right now. I hope to hear I trust I will hear from many of you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next live. All right. Until then,